Yes, it works. So happy it worked. I was trying to go live in a different browser screen and it was stalling on the going live. So I took a risk and closed that down, opened a new one, and here we are. Yay! That saves me a lot of hassle of starting a completely new live with a new link. You're still here. You're already here. Hi there. Welcome to the 6th live in the Between the Lines Quilt along. Happy this all worked out. That's good. That is good. Everyone is already here. I see in the chat. Lovely. I'm just going to close my door for the little ones. So then we can start. Let's see. Everyone is already here. There are some questions in there. I am first going to tell you what we're going to do today. We are going to work on the row, this one, of the Between the Lines Quilt Along. And today I am going to make it in the colors of the teal green kit. So that means this fabric with also the stripy one. So that is what I'm going to use today. And today is all about cutting strips, sewing them together and cutting them again. And there was already a fun question about that in the comments. Let's see. Hi from Switzerland. Lovely autumn morning. Yes, it is. It's a lovely autumn afternoon over here. So Rosanna is asking, tell us your thought process of creating your own striped fabric rather than using a striped fabric. Just wondering the big why. Of course, you can use a striped fabric to get this result. Definitely. But this is just a technique to practice on your 1/4 inch seam and to create a lovely structure in your quilt. So when using just a striped fabric, you would not have this lovely texture of strips that are sewn together. I love that. But yes, of course, you can do this with striped fabric. Although I guess this is quite a special one if you would find a striped fabric that has stripes in this direction, and then so you can just play with this and create your own special striped fabric. But besides from that, this block also works with normal stripy fabric. So if you're not using the fabric kit with the Robo Boogie fabrics, you can easily pick your own striped fabric if you want to make it a little bit easier for yourself. Then also says, thinking it's to practice to sew strips together and your 1/4 inch seam. Yes. Rosanna says, this is the first time I ever kept up. That is wonderful. Lovely to hear that. I always have trouble with keeping up with quilt alongs myself as well. So I'm really in awe if people are keeping up and are still on pace. And Emily is stuck at the curves. They intimidate me so much that I keep doing other things. Oh, maybe you can try with some scrappy fabric to just make one of the curves and see how it goes. And you can use as many pins as you'd like. So you can pin the whole thing down and then sew. That makes it easier sometimes than keeping it in place with your hands. Lovely. My mom is here. Hi, Mom. Lovely. Welcome, everybody. Audio is fine. Oh, thanks. Good morning from Chicago. I haven't done the curves yet because I didn't have much time. Take your time. If you're running behind with the quilt along, no worries. The posts of the quilt along will stay on the Bernina website for forever, for as long as the Bernina blog will exist. So take your time to do the quilt along in your own pace when you're running behind. Lovely. Yes, so that was all the comments that's there. Today is going to be a lot of cutting and sewing. And before we're going to start, I wanted to say something that I also wrote in the email that went out yesterday. So in the first preparations video, I went ahead and cut a lot of strips for the sashing of the quilt. And I had my fabric folded double, and I didn't notice that I cut double the amount of what we actually needed. So I put that right away in the comments of that video. But if you, like me, didn't notice that and also cut double the amount, then you can use those strips today. So what you need for the sashing is 13 of these 1.5 inch wide strips and 53-inch long, if I'm correct. When you cut double the amount, you can use some of those strips today for your 1-inch strips, because from the background we will be needing these 1-inch strips. So you can just cut your 1.5-inch strips a little bit smaller to 1-inch strips and use some of them for this row. And you can also use some strips in, I think it's row 2 and 4. Yeah, don't throw them away. You can reuse them in other rows. Let's see. Monica Laroche says the fabric in the fabric kit is not 22-inch long. Okay, I'm going to look into that. Yes, so let's keep it together and focus. Let's do some cutting and sewing first, and then I'll dive into the comment section with your questions. So I already have sewn and cut up some of the triangles with the wider strips. So we are going to make that piece with the narrow strips, the one that you see in here. We're going to cut and sew some of that. So I'm going to move over the camera so you can see my cutting area and my sewing area. And then we'll do another round of questions in a bit. So there we go. Let's see how we're going to do this. Yes. There we go. I think that's nicely in view. Yes. Move this out of the way. There we go. I think we have a lovely view of the cutting table. So this is a 1/2 meter piece for the teal green kit. But I am also going to take a piece from the regular kit just to show the size of those fabrics and show you how to cut them. Let's see, where do we have that? Yes, so this is one piece from the original Fat Quarter bundle. So if you're making the rainbow kit, you're going to have to cut strips from this one. So the remark was that the fabric was not 22 inches. Yeah, I see what you mean when I put it here. Here's 0 inches and here is 22. So technically there's a bit of sashing, and but that is completely fine. If you don't have 22 inches and you make it with that 21 inches, that's also okay. We will be cutting this one from there, this triangle. So you have strips of 22 inches and you sew them together, and then you cut some triangles out of that fabric, and it will also fit if you have a little bit shorter length of strip. You see, that will perfectly work out. So no worries. If you have a little bit shorter than 22, that is also completely fine. So, but now for the smaller strips, we need to cut strips of 18 inches, and that is because this fabric this way, the fat quarter this way, is about 18 inches. So there again, if your fabric is a little bit short of 18 inches, that's fine. Don't worry. That is okay. So let's see. We need to cut from this piece of fabric 16 strips of 18 inches. So this is folded double 22. And this is, well, it's 20. So I'm going to go with this direction. Fold it in half again, because that's easier to cut. And then I'm going to square off this side. There we go. So with cutting strips, you can always fold your fabric double or cut through multiple layers of fabric, but you don't have to. If you want to cut one by one, that's completely fine. Just do what feels good for you. I like to cut through a couple of layers just for efficiency, but that not always works out perfectly. Because with my background, I cut too many. So let's not do that again. So I'll measure this. So this is a little bit too long. There we go. This is 2. And then that is 4. And with cutting on a cutting mat 6, you can always choose if you want to cut on the lines of the ruler, or you can use the lines on your mat. I prefer to use the lines on my ruler. I just feel that's a little bit more precise than following the lines on my mat. Okay, now I did lose count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 12. How many did I say? 16. Yes. So this morning in the Dutch blog post, for everyone who read that one, it said still 18 strips to cut, but we need 16 strips. That's enough. Did I lose count again? I won't be sewing 18 strips. So for now, that's going to be enough. And then we'll put this aside. So now, what I didn't do in the blog post, as I mentioned there, I didn't cut all my strips to the correct length. And I just went on sewing from this stage. But what you then get is that you get a kind of a wobbly side of the fabric. So if you want to be more precise, it's nice to cut your fabric to the correct length and use some pins while sewing. The reason for that is that you're working with pretty thin strips, so there is some stretch in there. And yeah, using pins and measuring your strips on forehand, that's just good practice. So let's see, we're going to measure from there. That is 18 inches over here. So now I am using the lines on my mat. And then I have to cut over here. right under the camera. There we go. So now these strips are 18 inches. And I already cut some of the background. Is this also 18? Yeah. Oh, didn't cut that one. Yes. Cut all of those. This is also 18. Yay. That's nice. So this is going to be our stripy fabric. And the way I think it's easiest to do this is first sew them together, one by one in pairs. And then we're going to press that. And so that you have pairs of fabric. And then after you press it, you're going to sew together the pairs. And then you have sets of 4 strips together. And after that, you're going to press that and you're going to sew sets of 8. And that way you minimize the shifting in fabric. So what you could do if you want to keep everything straight and want to prevent, like your sewing machine could put a little bit more pressure on the top strip than on the bottom strip. And what is going to happen then is that it's going to shift a little bit. And that can create a little bit of wonkiness in your blocks. Yeah, so for the purpose of time, I am not going to pin all these strips just because I would like to get sewing. But when you're doing this, just put a pin in here, put a pin in there at the beginning and the end, in the middle, and maybe also here and here, that everything stays in place really nicely. Okay, so I'm going to move everything to the sewing machine. Let's see, put this away. Glue stick, we're going to use that later. Okay, there we go. Let's see, camera, please move with me. Yay, there we go. Then the computer, moving it out of the way. Perfect. Okay, that's what we're going to work with. So I'm just going to peek in the comments to see what's there. Cindy says she needs to catch up before the Advent calendar. Yes, the Advent calendars are shipped out today. Well, this week. Final one's going out today and tomorrow. Lovely. Sabina says, enough strips for a second quilt. Yes, that's true. Lovely. Will it help to transfer the template to freezer paper? Rosanna asks. Yes, sure. Then you can iron it on to your striped fabric. So, yeah, now it's just a lot of sewing. There we go. I am going to hold on to the end of this and then steer with my fingers here. That way the fabric also doesn't shift too much. That is 1. I think I'll be doing 6 and then see if I already have enough fabric. 3. Well, let's do 4. Then we have 2 pairs of 2. And Debbie says, I love that you're barefoot. Um, yes, well, it was getting pretty warm in here. And because the little ones are at home with my parents in law, I have to close the door because otherwise they will be playing outside or playing in the garage and coming in because the door is open. So it's pretty warm in here. Let's see. Carol Ann says the foot. Yes, it is the 97. So with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, there we go. So let's move to the ironing station. Go. Here we have some strips. And now we need to iron those. Yeah, so I like to finger press first a little bit to get the fabric open, and then on the back side I am going to press everything open. Most of the times that will go in one swoop. So then I put my iron on here, and with my fingers I kind of wiggle the seam open, and then the iron will do the rest. Yep, that kind of worked. And then flip it over and make it nice and flat on the other side as well. Next one. And even though this technique is lovely to practice your 1/4 inch seams, it's not a real problem if your seams don't end up to be precisely a 1/4 inch. As long as they're consistent throughout this row, it's quite fine. If the seam allowance is a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger, yeah, that's fine. So there we have 2. It's going to be a little longer demonstration than usual, I guess. But I hope that's fine. That is 3. Final one. I think my seam allowance here is a little bit smaller than a 1/4 inch. Okay, so there we have 4 sets of 2. Now we're going to pair them up. So that's one. Then we're just going to put one on top of that. And sew again, and also for the other one. So I think I'm just going to sew this instead of taking the camera with me, and then I'll be back in a sec. Lynn says, is that a light on your iron? Yes, there's a light on my iron. there is something I would like to show you on there. Let's see if I can get you in a little bit closer so I can show you what's happening here. If we can focus on that. Yes. So because you have 1-inch strips and you have a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and as you can see, my seam allowance was a little bit smaller than a 1/4. That means that you would have only 1/2 inch left here. And that makes it kind of tight for your foot to be on there. So what happens sometimes is that your seam is going to push a little bit to your foot, and that will move your fabric a little bit. So if my foot would be on this seam, then it's kind of unstable, that sometimes it moves off of the seam and sometimes it stays on. So in that case, I just move the seam a little bit out of the way with my finger so that this fabric is not pushing towards my foot. Otherwise, sometimes I get a little bit of a wiggly sewing line. And now it's out of the way. I have room to sew this seam. There we go. Okay. Now back to giving this a press. There we go, 2 sets of 4 strips. And now we just do the same. You fold it open and then iron this. So if this seam would be precisely a 1/4 inch, then your fabric would be now touching on the back, and mine is not. So my 1/4 inch seam here isn't a complete 1/4 inch. I could explain the reason for that if you're interested, but here you can see that the fabric isn't touching. So that means that either my strips are wider than 1 inch or my seam allowance is smaller than a 1/4 inch. There we go. So now I'm going to attach these together. And this is the whole process that you repeat until all the strips are joined. There we go. So now I'm just going to check how big my fabric is. If we have already a big enough piece to make almost a big enough piece, I'm going to make this work just to get one out of here so we can I can show you how to sew it together. There we go. So that is our tiny fabric piece. So this is only 8 strips. You're going to make this with 2 times 16 strips. And what you're going to do after you finish that, let's see. Yes, so after you finish this whole piece of 16 strips of background and white fabric and blue fabric, then you're going to square off the sides. You're just going to focus on one of the seams with one of the lines of your ruler. You're going to line it up like so, and then we're going to trim the side. I'm also going to do that on that side. And it's easiest if you make sure that your fabric is a certain length that you can easily divide by 2. So for example, here I can make it 17 inches. Is it 17? I guess so. 17, so the middle of that is 5, is 8.5. So then you're going to cut your whole piece of fabric in half, and I'm going to trim mine to 8.5. And then you're going to sew these together, and that's going to make your fabric, long fabric strip that we're going to use. So just going to give this a sew together, and then I'm back with you. There we go, nicely sewn together. I'm going to press this open. I'm just going to cheat a little bit here to see what we need here. So we need a little bit of more fabric there. Let's say we would need would it work? Yes, it would work. I guess make it like so, and then it would fit. Yes, really unorthodox, but hey. So if you're making this row, you're just going to follow the blog and sew all those rows together. I'm adding a little scrappy piece on the side. Oh, by the way, if you have scraps in this row, don't throw them away. In 2 weeks, I am going to share with you a wonderful project with all these tiny scraps. So if you have your long piece with all your strips, the idea is that you cut templates, triangles with the template piece. This is the piece that you can print out from the blog post, and you can either print it on freezer paper like someone suggested and iron it on there, or I use a little bit of temporary glue stick. And the trick to get it in the center and get it aligned with your stripy fabric is to fold this in half. So if you fold your triangle in half and align your fold line with the center, I am going to center it with a background fabric strip. Then open it up. Then you know that it is perfectly aligned with all your strips. There we go. And then I'm just going to take my ruler and cut out a triangle. I hope I didn't make it all too complicated with my cheating, with my tiny strip piece. There we go. And then the template has these odd corners, and you're also going to cut those off. So just follow the template. The big triangle has other odd corners than the small triangle, but that will really help you with sewing them together. Okay, I am going to take 2 pieces of the stripy fabric, and then we're going to make a block like this. So there we go. That's 1. That is 2. I am just going to check in the comments if I have confused you too much or if we can move on. Dana says, love spending time with you. Thank you so much. Good question about pressing seams open or to one side. Yeah, I do it open. Thanks, Crystal. I think I did confuse it a little bit with this one. Sometimes at retreats, the lighting isn't the best light. Yeah, it is the mini Oliso. It is a wonderful one. I think the light is just a really fun add-on to it. So more security to focus on. Yes, 1/4 inch exact seams. Yeah, 1/4 inch. So yeah, of course it's important. And with this row, we can really practice. But as you can see from the back, I think it's fun. So this one turned out really nicely. The back seams are touching. So for this strip, it went pretty great. And I think I cut my strips to quite perfectly 1 inch. But as you can see here, it really is not touching. And this, I can spot it already. This is just too small, this 1/4 inch. And when I sew with my Bernina, I use this foot. Let's see. Yes, we can get it in focus. And as you can see here, there's a line here that you can focus on, but there's also a little nudge over here. And I have a feeling that that sewing with the fabric here, so when you would have a piece of fabric and you have your foot right on here, I have a feeling that this gives a just too little seam allowance. And when I focus on that little notch over there, then the seam allowance is a good 1/4 inch. So yeah, that is my feeling. So maybe that is, I read a lot, a few months ago, I guess, a lot of quilters were writing about the slant 1/4 inch. Maybe that's a slant 1/4 inch and that's a real 1/4 inch, but yeah, so you can always test it out with your own machine to see what is a 1/4 inch for you. And then this row is a good one to practice it on. So we're going to sew this together to conclude this tutorial. And now you can also see why I made these notches in the pattern. And that is because when you put this on top of each other, your corners will really match. So with sewing triangles together, I think it's always hard because they will stick out and you don't know exactly where to align them. But with these templates, I made sure that it's easy to align them. So you're just going to put this on top of each other, and now it really is time to pin well because we have so many strips and so many seams and it's getting so stretchy that it's good practice to pin this well before you start sewing. And also it's now cut on the bias, so as you can see here, there's so much stretch in here. So just pin it well, and then you'll be fine. Yes, so let's sew. Foot. I need a foot. There it is. There we go. That is wonderful. I am going to press this, and you don't really have to press it open since there are so many seams in here. It just feels better to press it one side. Yeah, that's mostly what I do when this is kind of a simple side with one fabric and this has a lot going on. Then folding this again creates even more bulk on that side. So leaving it as it is and just fold only the simple side. Let's use my seam presser so I don't have to move around the camera. So, there we go. And then the other one that is going to go here. And for this as well, we still have that corner cut off, which fits perfectly. Some pins. Lovely to see how this block is coming together after you do all the sewing with the strips. It's so much fun to sew with your own fabricated fabric, I think. That's it. Oops. Ta-da! There we go. Lovely. And then we have the block. So this is what it's going to look like. And the reason why it's not too bad that you don't have your quarter inch exactly the same or exactly a quarter inch, but it's nice to have it consistent, because when you have your seam allowance consistent, this is going to be the same. And what that does is when you're going to join these together, that you can match these points nicely. So that is the difficult thing. I'm not going to match these because this is for the rainbow quilt and this is for the teal green quilt. But especially when you're doing your accent piece, then you would have this one over here and this one over here. It's nice to be able to kind of match these points. And when you would be sewing these together, then of course you put them on top of each other and at a quarter inch from the edge, you're going to pin and see if it also sticks out through. Let me zoom in for you. So you stick your pin in at the seam and then check on the other side if it also pops out in the seam. And then you know that these points are aligned. So when you would fold it open, that point is nicely matching. So yeah, so but that is when you would join these. So these are your building blocks. First make your strips, then cut out with your template, and then sew your triangles together again. You're going to make 5 of these building blocks, and then you have your whole row complete. Yes, okay. I think that's it. I am going to put you back to this side. There we go. With my planty friends in the background, working on the quilts for my new fabric line. that is going to release November, December. Let's see. Thanks, Linda says we understand. Good to know how to add a piece just in case. Yes. So you are going to be left with quite some of these scrappy fabrics, and I have a lovely little project in mind to use these scrappies in. So just keep them, and in 2 weeks on the Bernina blog, we will be doing another fun project with these ones. Thanks. Thanks, Carol. That is wonderful. Barbara says, out of topic question, did you send all the advent calendars? Did not get it yet. Good question. Yes, so the big bunch went out last Wednesday. All the international kids advent calendars went out last Wednesday. No, the Wednesday before, Wednesday a week ago. So 1.5 weeks ago, the big bunch of kids went out, and all the Dutch and EU advent calendars went out, spread over this week. So the post actually came to pick up all the advent calendars, but it didn't all fit in the carriers that they gave me. So now we're bringing batch by batch to the post office. And I think the final 2 batches will go out today and tomorrow to the post. So, but that's only EU or Dutch packages. So those will arrive probably in a week from now. And we could assemble 19 more advent calendars, and those will go in the shop on Monday. So if you haven't ordered your advent calendar yet and want to sew along, then you can still order it, and I will send out an email with the links today, and on Monday a reminder that on 4 o'clock Dutch time everything will be in the web shop, the final advent kits. Lovely. Rosanne is going to put her fabric together. Oh, great. And Lynn is excited to catch up next week. Wonderful. Liz say, did you show how to make the smaller triangle, or did you miss it? No, I didn't show it, but it is the same technique. So with the smaller triangle, we're going to make a strip with only, how much is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strips of fabric. So this is going to be your strip, and we're going to make 3 of these strips. One with your accent fabric included, and let's see if I have it here in my scraps. And 2 strips without your accent fabric, so with just the stripy and the background. So we're going to make 2 of these that are 20 and 22 inch long, and 1 of these with your accent fabric, and then you're going to cut your small triangles from these. Yeah, so that's the same technique, but then just with fewer strips putting together. Karen says, what about the question that fabric ordered is not 22 inch long? Yes, I showed that quickly, but that's okay. You will have enough room for it. So from your 22 inch long strips, you will be sewing a strip like this with just 5 strips together, and you will need to cut with your accent fabric included. You will just need to cut 2 of these, so you will have some leftover fabric here, because this is all you need to cut from your 22 inch strip with your accent fabric. And then with the other one, you just need to cut 4 of these from your 22 inch long strip. So you will have some leftover at the sides, so that's no problem at all if your strip is not 22 but maybe 21 inches. So that's no problem. So the 22 includes also seam allowance. So you're all good. That's all good. Yes, so I think that's it. I have a lovely messy table over here, and I can put together my rows as well for my quilt. So I hope that answers all your questions. If you still have questions, just put them under the blog post on the Bernina blog, and then I'll be there to answer them for you. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you will have a wonderful weekend. It's Friday afternoon here, so it is the weekend. And I see that we already did a 1 hour live, so that's enough. I'm not going to keep you any longer. Happy quilting, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.